we're joined by another amazing guest today, film and game composer Michael Cryne. How are you, sir? You okay?
Hey, nice to chat to you. It's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me on the show. I've seen some of the previous guests, very impressive. So
thank you so much.
I'll try and keep up the standard. It looks,
you definitely will.
Looks very cool.
Yeah, thank you. How's things? Okay.
Yeah, really good. I'm talking to you from it's not my office, but it's a teaching space here at Bournemouth University, where I've just taken a job. Recently taken a new job, a day job, as it were, a lecturing job. So I'm going to be teaching music and audio production down here on the south coast of the UK for the foreseeable future. We got some great facilities here, and it's super exciting. And I'm just staring around this room at all the iMacs and the keyboards and all of that jazz, and it's pretty swish. So as I say, I don't know how any of it works yet, but I'll find out and try and plug things in, and hopefully they won't catch fire. And I'm quite good at breaking things.
Yeah.
So it's like I say quite good. I'm really good at breaking stuff. So it's like I plug it in, it's like, wait, that's not supposed to do that. The technicians are like, what did you press? But I don't know. I don't know.
Nothing.
If there's a button that can screw something up, like I will find it. I promise.
Oh, I'm exactly the same as you, but when did you come back to the UK? I know you were in Copenhagen, weren't you?
I was in Copenhagen, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a top tip for relocating during a global pandemic, which is don't do it. Just don't do it. It's an absolute nightmare. Yeah, I was in Copenhagen for about 3 years. It was great, really cool experience. And now I'm kind of relocated to sort of take this job, just because I'm really excited about it. I like the idea of being on the south coast of England. It's warm today everywhere for those people listening back at some stage in the future. We're in the middle of a heat wave in the UK. It's really, really warm, but it is a really nice climate here, and it's nice and chilled and not too far from London, and lots of advantages. So yeah, I'm sort of exploring the area, and been back for 3 months now, finding my feet. It's nice to be able to go into a shop and just not have to switch languages and that sort of thing. I was doing all right with learning Danish. I was all right. I wasn't so bad, but like people would switch in stores. When you're at the checkout, they'd quickly switch when they realised you weren't Danish and you were English, because they obviously. Everyone in Denmark speaks great English, and so they just switch when they hear you're bad Danish, which they just, and it's all in the pronunciation, so they could tell that I wasn't native, so they switch over. But it's great. It was, relocating during a pandemic was, wow, man, that was full on. Yeah, really full on.
I know that a few people have done the same thing during the pandemic, and it's hard enough moving anyway, let alone a pandemic. But did you move because of the job that was offered to you?
Yeah, I moved because of the job, and with the other stuff, with my freelance work, it is, no one cares where you are or what you're doing, so long as you're in a relatively sensible time zone for your clients and whatnot. Nobody's really bothered about when or where you do the work. I'm sure we sit in a room on our own half the time, and just it doesn't matter where that room is. So
And with your setup in Copenhagen, was it the same sort of setup you had back here as well? Was it very similar?
Set up in terms of what?
Your studio setup.
I moved the studio. And it's a real pain, actually, because whenever you buy or rent anywhere to live, you have to sort of factor in another room for this, all the kit. You know how it is. It's a real pain. But I have I literally just moved the studio. What I did. I don't know how into the weeds you want to get with all this, but I've switched over to I went back into Mac land. I just bought a Mac Mini to be the centerpiece of the studio, and I run like a subordinate computer that runs VE Pro, just like a double computer setup, a network thing. So there's quite a lot of computers going, too many screens. It is way too warm to be in today, but I have my own sort of nice little. I got one of those. I invested in one of those output desks. I don't know whether you've seen them. It's super nerdy at this point. It's really, really gorgeous. Highly recommended. I know there are people that made their own. I'm nowhere near handy enough to be able to make my own desk. I would chop bits off myself and end up with a load of wood that I could never use again, and I'd spend 3 times the amount that it would cost to just buy the desk. So I'm just gonna buy this off the shelf. It's why not?
Don't blame me at all. I mean, with your approach to composing, did it change at all during the pandemic, or was it very similar to what it was beforehand?
I guess I repositioned myself slightly when things took a downturn to focus on some more commercial, revenue streams are falling all over the place, and I was trying to work out how to diversify income streams and all of that sort of stuff. I do quite a lot. I do quite a bit of production music, which is great. I really like it because when you're trying to do other stuff and you're busy and whatnot, you can sort of chip away at it and just be. It takes if you can knock out a production track in around about 3 hours if you're organized and you've got all your templates ready to go and whatnot. You can get it done, and then if you're just consistent with it, you find you've got a lot of material by the end of a month or something. So I quite like doing that. It's quite cool. So yeah, I went after some more commercial stuff, but then I was able to do what I really like doing is the slightly more experimental end of things. Now, what happened to me during the pandemic was that a lot of projects that I was working on got paused. I am working on a Danish, there's a guy who's making a Danish, I say Danish, there's a chap in Denmark who's making a Danish, the Danish film industry have come together to make a Star Wars film. So I'm co-composer on that. Yeah, it's really cool. But that got paused because obviously, as you can imagine, when a Star Wars film, there's loads of VFX that need doing. So we're sort of, that had to get paused as all the studios, shut down. I was working on an independent film, not experimental, but the directors wanted a more experimental score, which obviously, why they came to me. And then that ended up getting paused. I think that they just about finished filming, they just about wrapped, and then they kind of got stuck. And then, we'd not been able to get access to, because I don't really know how it works. I just know that editing software and editing suites and things like that, they need a lot of juice in the tank. Like, they need much more powerful computers than even we need. I think we just need, as musicians and composers, we just need a whole big bunch of RAM, and we're set to go. And the stuff we do doesn't necessarily tax the CPU that much. I think so they needed all these super duper computers that they literally couldn't get access to. And so it was kind of a bit of a case of hurry up and wait a lot of the time in the pandemic. So I was chipping away at production music stuff. I was doing I worked on you introduced me as a film and game composer. I'm also a composer, like what I say traditional, but a contemporary sort of classical, post-classical. I don't know, these terms get thrown around, composer. So I worked on a couple of choral commissions as well, which were nice to get. And I wrote, while I was out in Denmark, I wrote a song cycle for piano and soprano. A wonderful soprano called Jessica Summers, who's a real champion of a lot of new British, slightly out there, more experimental music. And so I wrote a song cycle. And then a couple of choral pieces. Was working on a couple of films and a game. I pitched for. I literally did a cold pitch. It came across my desk on Twitter. Gorgeous looking game. If you're into game, go and check it out. It's a 2D scrolling Metroidvania thing. It's called Dewborn Dawn. The team are wonderful. The artwork is just to die for. We're at relatively early stages with that, but it's already proving to be one of those, passion project. Oh my God, this is falling in my lap. And they want a kind of quasi orchestral score and I'm trying to get as many live instruments. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know one of my big things is like live. I love when I can afford it. It's usually the composer that's got to shell out for these things, isn't it? And I just love using live players as much as possible. It's that extra level of, samples are great. And we can get into the weeds if you want to hear it. I really like some of the developments that have happened in modeling. I like modeled instruments because I like being able to play my stuff, because I think that gives everything an extra dimension of musicality, being human. But you know, rather than sort of stacking these samples together, they're basically just recordings of sound that already exists. You can, with modeled instruments, you can make it, you can bend it to your will a little bit, but you know, then it's on you. If it's not that, the part's not that musically sounding, it's chances are because you've not done a great job recording it in, which is down to me. So you know, by the time I've done the 9th take, it's generally all right. You know, it is.
Yeah, true. I know that you work with notation first, normally, don't you? And
sorry,
okay.
I'm really awkward because a lot of the time, I work with notation first. It's just because if you're notationally literate, it's just fast.
Yeah.
It's just fast. And I got hold of I had to do all this isolation stuff, and all my studio had to go into a box, and I had an iPad, and I had an iPad for quite a long time because I wasn't able to. I relocated and then had to wait, like before I could move in anywhere. I found a really nice place that I could move into, but it wasn't available, so I had to kind of do a bit of sofa surfing in the meantime. And thanks to all those people who helped me out, I'm forever in your debt. But I didn't have my kit. I didn't have my stuff. I was like, okay, fine. What am I going to do about this? I thought, okay, I could go back to pen and paper, but I discovered a wonderful tool called StaffPad, which I don't know whether you've seen it. It's an iPad. Yeah. Yes, I mean, it's like paper and pencil, and then you get playback from Cinesamples and Berlin. I bought the Berlin. I think it was cost an arm and a leg. Actually, it's quite annoying. Because if you've got the Berlin strings, you then have to buy them again because they've. I don't know what voodoo they've done, but they've managed to squeeze all these samples down into however tiny it is so they can fit on the iPad, and it's just the playback quality is astonishing, and you just write it in, and then so what I do now, I've got my studio, I've been exporting everything to Dorico because I switched out. I'm a Dorico user as well. I'm in the cult. I know people are kind of laugh at us, you know, Dorico. How do you know? How do you know someone uses Dorico? Don't worry, they'll tell you.
I do argue about that actually.
I do evangelize about it just because the team is great, and there's a great active community around it, and I'm friends with Lily, who writes all the help documentation and is just like obsessed with making it like as usable as possible, and the team are super engaged, and John Barron does all of these I think they're weekly or bi-weekly or whatever, but he does discover Dorico things, and it's just, and actually this is what's happening across the wider industry. They're not the only people who are doing this, but like just to see look, this is how our thing works, and this is how you can get the most out of our tool. That sort of approachability of we don't just make software, we're trying to help you, the working professionals that are using our software, use that software. And I feel like the software is great, and it's a joy to compose in and edit in, and parts are, but I remember because I was on Sibelius forever, and I struggle with finding errors in parts and things like it doesn't come naturally to me. I'm not one of nature's engravers. I make a lot of mistakes and double sharps, and I find it quite stressful, to be honest. And then just knowing that the computer takes care of it for me. With Dorico, with Sibelius and Finale, although I've never used Finale, this is what my information is. It's very, very customizable. Is this is this super? Is this what you're after? This
I love it. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Fine.
Actually, I love it.
Fine. This is really inside baseball already. Like I didn't know we were going to end up at this point, but it's great if it's cool for you. But I really like being able to make a setting and make a setting, and then it's done. It's changed. Rather than, I need to change this in all of my, and I've been really lucky actually, because I got to write quite a lot of orchestral music in my time. And when you're doing 100 odd parts, that really, the time really mounts up. And then when you want to change something in the score, you're like, oh my God, I really want to change this in the score, but oh my God, it's going to be another 25 hours work. And you just think, do I really want to change? Anyway, the point is, the point is with the Dorico workflow, that's changed now. So you set it, and it changes in everything. I
Yeah.
don't. Do you use Dorico yourself?
I've never. I'm Sibelius myself, so but I've heard of it briefly before, which is why I wanted to ask about it actually. For you?
Do you need to set some time aside for the learning curve? I won't lie.
Yeah, yeah.
It took me about a year to get as comfortable. I got a Stream Deck. Well, I didn't get a Stream Deck. I got the Stream Deck app for my iPhone, and that really helped because I don't know about you, but I was thinking about it. I've got I keep again. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm moaning a lot about Pro Tools because we teach Pro Tools here at Bournemouth, and I've had to go back to Pro Tools, which is.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's
that
great.
faces it all though.
It's the industry standards. Yeah, yeah. The industry needs higher standards. Sorry, Avid, but I don't like you. Yeah, and so we're going. I use Pro Tools. I have to learn Logic now. I'm a Cubase with my sequence in my DAW. I'll come back to your original question. You start with notation. I haven't forgotten. I promise. I do waffle a bit.
I love it.
And I have to use, what is it? Yeah, Cubase, Logic, Pro Tools, Dorico, Sibelius. I use Ableton sometimes. I've used Ableton for my sort of electronic stuff. You know, and this and this and that. But you're using all of these programs, and I'm a big evangelist of keyboard shortcuts just because they speed up workflow. But I can't remember. Is it Option Command G to make things bigger on Pro Tools, or is that the Cubase setting? I can't, it drives me nuts. So I have an iPad app, Metagrid, which is great. So if you're into streamlining your workflow, check out Metagrid, and also the Stream Deck. So between those two, I'm covered on my keyboard shortcuts because it is nerdy, but you know how it is because time is so tight and deadlines are so tight. You just need to be, whatever program you've got to work in, you've got to move fast. There's no pause for thought sometimes. So you've got to be so efficient. Anyway, to answer your original question, which you asked about 15 years ago, sorry. So with the film, I was working on a psychological horror film. It's called The Hanged. It's great. Young directors, a team, a duo, super enthusiastic, super nice. Two lads from the northwest of England, which, as you could probably tell from my accent, is where I'm from originally. So it's really nice to kind of have that sort of regional connection. And they wanted a score very much in the vein of the Gull Nod of Tears score for Chernobyl. I can't remember his name, but there's a guy who's written his PhD thesis on something he calls film minimalist music. I'm really sorry, whoever you are. It's only because I've just downloaded the paper. It's a brilliant paper, and I'm reading it. And it's I wish I could remember his name. I can't find the file either. I don't want to go file hunting while I'm chatting to you. But this sort of, this Mika Levy, Johan Johansson, Hilda Gunnardotir aesthetic, which I obviously love, being a bit of an experimentalist myself. I love doing that sort of work, and they wanted that kind of score. So with that, obviously, I did put some. I think I put. Again, I'm going to plug another. I'm not endorsed by any of these people that I'm plugging. No one gives me any money. Maybe I should ask for a sponsorship or endorsements or whatever, a Dorico T-shirt or whatever. But I was using. He's a smaller developer. He makes something called the Bunker Strings, which are amazing. The kind of experimental. Bunker Samples, sorry, is the name of the company, and I use he's got an amazing avant-garde experimental string library, and it's just one of those amazing, unique, special labors of love. He does amazing. He's got a harmonium as well, which I can't remember whether I own. Don't think I've ever used it in a project. If I do, but that was the only instrumental element that I used on that project. The rest of it was, what would you call it? Sound design. It feels a bit reductive to use that term, but it was in that crossover area of, is this music, is this sound, which I just find a fascinating area to be working. And now, can you get away with it if you're doing, if the directors want a more melodic approach? No, I mean, yeah, I think you can. I love being on this cusp of Is it sound? Is it music? I feel there's real interesting, there's an interesting furrow to be ploughed here in media, music, and concert music as well. You know, if you want to check out some of my electroacoustic music, it's on my YouTube channel. You can go to it and you can check it out. I love blurring those lines. Is it the instrument? Is it sound? Is it? It was great to be able to get to do that on a film, because it's not often that you get such creative free reign, to kind of, and there was no, one of the things that was amazing, there was no temp. They didn't put a temp in, which is increasingly rare these days. So it was, I mean, we had a reference track list, which I think is cool. That's great. I think directors, in the way that I struggle to talk about how to film a scene, or how to plan a building, or how to design a network infrastructure. I can't visualize it. I don't know the vocabulary. I don't know how to speak about it. So drawings and analogies and reference things really help me out. That they really help me find out what it is the directors are looking for in terms of their sound world. But it was great to also be freed from make it sound like this, which it's just such a joy. Anyway, film's in post right now, so fingers crossed it'll be released soon, and I can be sharing it, and all that sort of jazz. It got stalled for a long time.
Wish you all the very best of luck. Because you mentioned before actually about that kind of the avant-garde sound design sort of things, that you mentioned that you take inspiration from natural force or man-made structure and human relationships to them, and has become fascinated by the intersection between the two. I mean,
you've been reading my bio. It feels like my PhD bio.
Yeah.
Can you explain this? Can we dig into this a little bit more,
sorry.
Michael? Oh my God, no, no, it's great. No, it's great. I wrote it. I wrote it. I wrote it.
I mean, are there like any particular places and structures that have really captured your imagination and still do to this day?
Well, yeah, and when I was thinking about that, when I was writing that statement, I was working at the time. I was working on an electroacoustic piece for alto flute and electronics, which was inspired by a wind. I'm going to try and get this right now. Wind sculpture called In Cloud Light. What I'm going to do, because I am useless at, Anthony Howe is his name. And if you search for Anthony Howe In Cloud Light, you'll see this amazing rippling, turning metal structure. And it's very affected by the movement of the wind. There's a sort of real symbiosis between, he's made this thing, but it's really at one with its surroundings and the natural world. And where does the artifice begin, and where does nature live? And I think we're all trying to be a bit more aware of these things without, I don't want to be preachy, but we're sort of, we're I hope all becoming a little bit more environmentally conscious, and the world around us and how we treat it and how we interact with it. And here's a nice forest, should we build an A road through it? Well, we should probably think twice about that, and all those sorts of things. So yeah, I found that sort of approach very, very inspiring. And I try I had an approach with, I'm trying to think of, because it was a while ago, because everything got paused, and then I sort of had to finish off the film in a real hurry, so I kind of didn't have a lot of thinking space, but I did at the start. And then when I was thinking about the vocabulary of the film, I used a lot of things like, there's a scene in which the character is, well, there's a character, no spoilers, but has a heart attack. And I used, it's really obvious, but I took all the sounds that I could from a heartbeat, and manipulated them into, yourself, right? It's amazing what you can do with just a single sound, and so then when you've got all the sounds that the heart makes, I think the aortic valve, I don't know, I'd have made a lousy doctor, But you know, all of these different elements that have been recorded, and then you found you could use them, and then that felt really organic in both senses of the word. You know, to be in that environment, drawing inspiration from what's happening on the screen directly, feeding back into it with a textural soundscape. You know, that does become. It's music at points, but then it's sound, and then it drifts in of one area and out of the other as the intensity or the scene requires. You're obviously, when you're writing film music as opposed to concert music, you're constrained by what's going on the screen. Sorry, that's a super obvious point to make, but it is nevertheless true. And then obviously when you're writing concert music, it's a lot more up to you how you choose to respond. But with In Cloud Light, all of the electroacoustic sounds were taken from in the same way that I wrote an entire cue for the film just using sounds from a heartbeat. I wrote an entire piece using purely metal sounds. Right, I think I had, I don't know, it was a while ago. I want to say 5 metal sound sources, and just got the most. It's that same game. I had one of my first ever composition teachers explain the game of composition to me, and he said the job, and I don't think this is the only job. I'm not into prescriptive approaches to composition, but he said get the maximum amount of music from the minimum amount of material. Now, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I don't, there's no, and I'd never say, oh, this is the way to do it, and this is a great approach, and I love this approach, and you should follow this approach. Get the most amount of material, get the most amount of music out of the minimum amount of material. But it does work for me. It was Stravinsky, wasn't it? Said once I've decided on a few on my parameters and restrictions, I feel very free to compose. Yeah. So it's the same. I think being given a studio that can do everything, and all of the sound sources in the world, and the entire universe, I think you go mad if you don't restrict yourself somehow. So I like that approach on an aesthetic level, but also a practical level, just to how am I actually going to do this thing without becoming overwhelmed. And I feel like it's really easy to get overwhelmed in the studio with the, I don't know about you. What do you like? If we have a conversation, like, what do you? I think I own all the Fab Filter plugins. I own Sound Toys bundle. I obviously there's all the stock plugins that you can use to manipulate sounds in whatever DAW you're using. I got into Max for Live, a couple of years. I don't use it anymore actually because I drifted away from Ableton. But et cetera, et cetera. Like, I reckon you've probably got 1,000 tools in your studio, right?
That's way too much. Yes, it's too much. Way too much.
Too much.
I'm exactly like you, where I'd rather have, say, a few things to work with, but make something much better out of it. Because, like you said, you get so overwhelmed with so many things that are disposable, don't you? It's ridiculous.
So, is it all right for me to ask? I don't know how. I didn't check out. Sorry, I didn't.
That's all right.
I was kind of very conscious. I didn't know whether I was allowed to ask. But I don't know how do you approach that? Like being overwhelmed by the process in the studio. How do you deal with that being? That sense of being overwhelmed?
Well, with me, I like to focus on one thing at a time, and don't try and do too many things at once. So say I'm working on a project, I'll just focus on, say, maybe the melody first. I go to the piano, create a melody, and then work it from there. Or if I feel like doing drums, say one day, I'll do drums first and build up from there. I won't do a little bit of everything. That makes sense. I focus on the sounds that I know that I work really well, and then take it from there. I mean, is that kind of similar to your kind of approach as well, where you'll focus, say, 1 or 2 things at a time, then move on? Or
well, let's have a conversation then about, because the score I'm working on now for Dewborn Dawn is very, very different. The director, the game developer, and the creative director wants a very melodic score. They want, it's a computer game, so we want that post Wagner, John Williams-esque this is the theme for such and such. It's going back completely in the opposite direction, which, by the way, I really love. I love that approach. And, you know, you mentioned melody, and I think what I do is I have my iPhone. I have a one-touch system set up on my iPhone, so I can dictate melodies to myself.
And I do that as well.
Great, yeah. There you go. So, do you always start with melody, or
not always? But because I'm such a kind of avid fan of powerful melody, that's what I go to first. I'm like you, I play piano too, so
yeah,
I'll sit at the piano and create something and build it up from there. I get my theme, say, and then build it up from there, and I can create without. I hate sounding big-headed, but I'm able to create a lot of melodies really easily on the piano. So I could just record, say, X amount of melodies, and then choose which ones are my favorites and build up from there. Also, I do a little test as well the next day that if I like what I made the day before, then I move on. Because I'm such a perfectionist, which I'm sure you are too, is if I hate everything that I make, but there's an odd one that I like.
Do you?
There's a few things that I like, obviously, but I'm such a perfectionist thinking I could do better than that. I could do better than that. I could do better than that. And although I've obviously improved over the years so much, and I've loved some of the things I've come out with, to me, it's just okay. Although to someone else, it's like, wow, that's bloody amazing. Now, how the hell do you do that with that? Like, to me, it's just okay, because I don't like to see myself as this amazing musician composer. I think it's just what I do. It's just I make something. I think it's easy and move on. But that is, how do you feel about your work? Because I listened to your work again yesterday. It's amazing. I mean, when you listen back to it, are you a big fan of your own work, or do you feel, I could be better than that? It's like listening to your own voice back to things like, I hate my own voice.
Which I hate. Yeah. I absolutely, I absolutely despise listening back to my own voice. It's like, that's not me. Who put that? That's just all nasal. It's awful. So I think there's, do I like my own work? I think, it's just such a difficult question to answer. It's like when you see a photo of yourself. Yeah. Do you think, he's a good-looking bloke? You know, it's like, well, I don't know. I don't know. And then someone else that sees a photo of you and they're like, "You're looking really handsome there, man. You're looking. That's a nice photo of you." And I'm like, "Thanks, Mum." You know, but it's really difficult to tell. I think there's a separation. There's a time. There's an amount of time that elapses, and then you can go back to your music and think, yeah, it was all right. I've written some stuff that I've written some stuff that I don't like. I mean, to be honest with you, like a lot of the horror stuff, I think the music for the horror film, or the thriller film. Do I like it? I mean, it's not likable music. It's very, very effective. So, but then the melodies that I'm writing for the soundtrack that I'm writing for Dewborn Dawn, I'm really enjoying listening to that because it's melodic and it's a nice listen. And I, like you, I do a lot of melodic creation and chuck 90% of it away because, and also don't forget, like, you know, and of course you know this, but we go with this is a great track, and the creative director will say, it's a bit. I wrote a main theme for our lead character, and it took me quite a while, and I was really pleased with that. I thought, this is great. I'm like, you know, you go to your team, though, you're like, look, I made a thing, look, and they were like, it's all right. I'm not, you know, and they were great. And they said, I don't want to use musical words, but it's just not grabbing me. And I was like, all right. Well, then if it's not grabbing them, then it's not going to grab anybody else. So I did a version 2, and everyone loves it. And to be fair, it's a better version. So sometimes there's that, and also there's that additional dimension, isn't there? Is it good enough for you to like it? I think this is great. The rest of the team don't feel it's as good as it could be.
It's true. Okay. You go. So I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Not so well. You go off and then you feel a bit like, oh, all right. Actually, to be honest with you, I've gotten better at that over the years. It's easier to take knocks like that. I find it's water off a duck's back these days. I'm like, all right, okay, fine. And then I go and get on with something else. I do a new version. I've become pretty good at not letting rejected cues knock my confidence, which I think, if you're a younger or emerging or developing composer, I know that's really difficult to learn. When you work in a client facing industry, which I do with my media work, it can be very, very difficult to realize at the end of the day you're essentially looking for approval. I mean, quite literally, the term is I got a cue approved. It's the term we use, and it is external approval. You need to have it. You need to have that music validated by somebody else, because they're going to put it in their game, film, whatever, and that can be really tough. So
yeah. Do you tend to work with other people as well? Like, do you have co-composers as well sometimes, or is it all down to you for your projects?
For the first time ever with the Star Wars film, I'm working with a co-composer. In fact, he was the guy that brought me on board to be the co-composer. Now we've got a great relationship, so that works really, really well. A lot of people contact me wanting to be my assistant, or to do assistant work, or this and that, and I just don't have the budget, and I won't ever. It's a principle thing for me. As I said, I don't want to be preachy, but I won't. I don't like. I think the free work, the culture of that people are expected to do so much work for free, and I'd need so much from an assistant if an assistant was gonna. I couldn't morally justify it to myself. So I'd love like 3 assists. I'd love someone to do my mock-ups for me. I'd love just to hand it to write my thing, to write a cue and just go, please, Kate or Dan or Suzanne, whatever, please make this into mock-up magic, because I quite enjoy the process of mocking stuff up, and I enjoy mixing and producing the stuff. But the minutiae of making each instrumental part sound great,
yeah,
some days I really feel it and I get into it, and then other days I'm like, oh, I've got 60 parts to make sound good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love. Maybe not co-composers. I don't know whether I'm one of nature's collaborators. I tend to think that too many cooks is definitely definitely a problem.
Yeah.
It could never say never. I don't know. Yeah, I'm probably a bit too. I think I've got my process. I know how it's taken me a long time. I've got a lot of grey hair. I'm not a young man anymore. And it's taken me a long time to get to working out what works for me. And then every time you work with somebody, and it's enough, especially if you're working in a collaborative environment with a team. But I don't know, a lot of AAA games work on that model, don't they? They'll have a lead composer, and then they'll have other composers doing their thing. I mean, never say never, but I prefer working on like indies. And that being my music, and I know I've done it. I think I'd feel a bit weird even handing over the. I'm not a control freak, but I think like a lot of stuff when I'm doing the mock-ups for a lot of stuff. So again, I'll talk about Dewborn Dawn. I'm using a lot of synthesizers. I love Omnisphere. Do you use Omnisphere?
Yeah, I love Omnisphere. Love it.
I don't use anything else. It's about. I'm wary of leaning on one tool too hard, but when it can do
everything,
just about everything. I mean, I haven't touched the granular options in it. I'll be honest. I don't use a lot of granular synthesis just because of where my aesthetic lies. That's the one thing I generally don't touch in Omnisphere. But everything else, it's just so powerful. I mean, if I'm waiting for I want to know what they're going to do with Omnisphere 3. Better file management, please. If you're listening, please, better file management. I'm constantly losing stuff. and maybe, I don't know, more layers. That would be super helpful. But my point, sorry, my point was, I think I uncover a lot of things in the mock-up process, especially when working with synths. Oh, wait, this is changing the orchestration of, because I'm working on it's a synthesizer, and so it's a synth score, but it's also an orchestral score. So it's both. I'm using both. And then you'll do something. You'll put something in a synth part, and that'll make you want to go back to the orchestration and change the orchestration. So there's a real symbiotic relationship between the mock-up and the music, as it were, and there's a real reciprocal. There's a real reciprocity between what's going on in the score. I have Dorico open and I have Cubase open, and I kind of bounce between the two of them a lot of the time. Because one, you can, oh, wait a minute, that bell sound is doing the job. I had put that thing on harp, but actually those bells sound amazing. And actually now they're on bells, that part is too busy. So I'm going to take some notes out, and, I better renotate that. And then I'll take that, et cetera, et cetera. So I think even employing assistants might cause me to miss out parts of the process that make the music more me, if that makes any sense.
100%. I'm exactly the same as you. I'd rather have the project down to me rather than giving it to someone else. That makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not a control freak at all, exactly like you, but I like to know that it's me in control of what I'm doing. So I like to have it all there in front of me and doing it that way. But I've actually forgotten the reason for this, actually. But going back to games, actually, how does it work when you say you create a specific piece for a certain scene for the game, say, and you're playing, but the music actually loops for, say you're in one area for, say, 2 hours, yet the music's still going.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, it depends. There are loads of different ways of approaching it. And there's a great book. There's a wonderful composer, Winifred Phillips, who's written a great book on game music and how to be a game composer. She's also a really nice person. And there is lots of... I don't know how much you know about this, but there are things like, we call them middleware. So there are two programs called Fmod and Wwise. They're the kind of the leaders. There's another one, but the name escapes me. Do you know that? Have you heard of these things?
Briefly, yeah.
Fine.
Briefly,
well, to give you, so what can happen is you can construct a track with let's say about somewhere between 3 and 4 minutes of music that can have so many variations built into it. You can allow the game to control how many elements are played, which elements are played together. You can allow randomization to, say, for example, you've got 4 bass tracks. Well, let's keep it simple. You've got 4 bass tracks and you've got 4 synthesizer tracks. Well, you can have the bass track 1 and synth track 1 play together for a minute, and then you can have bass track 1 and synth track 3 play together for a minute, and this, and then you could have no bass track and then a synth track. There are loads of ways in which to create these endless variations, and then there are people doing the research into how to get AI to help us with this process, because generative music, in the same way that No Man's Sky was a generative game. There are people looking into how you do that with music and audio. Now, I'm going to be honest, that worries me as a composer, because right. Yeah. And you've just talked about how you throw 90% of your melodies in the bin, right? Well, yeah, I'm the same. And I think, do I just want this will do as a variation of this? There is an aesthetic issue in there. Now, what you tend to do is so for example, if you're scoring a cutscene, a cutscene is like, in games, essentially the same as scoring a movie. It's there, it exists. There's time code, okay, fine. I know exactly what's going to happen from frame to frame. With game, obviously, as you said, you can have a player in an area for 2 hours. It's worth it's worth, if you're interested in this, and any listeners who are interested in this, it's worth listening to, going and hunting down the composer for the score of Ori and the Blind Forest. Do you know it?
Yeah, of course. I love that soundtrack.
Great.
Brilliant
Right.
soundtrack.
So
Yeah.
Gareth is an amazing composer, but also a gamer. And he talks really eloquently and really engagingly on how he didn't use a lot of these systems and built variation, the middleware that I was talking about. He said he actually sat down for ages and ages and ages, just playing early alpha builds of the game and just working out how he could create music without relying on these tools to generate a great score. And I think it's one of the greatest game scores that's ever been written. I think it's absolutely astonishing. I absolutely love it. It's brilliant. It's one of those scores that makes me really glad to be in this. And then there are loads, and I picked on Ori, but I could have chosen. As at the same time I was listening to, I had a big long road trip, and I was listening to Ori, and I was listening to the music from Ghost of Tsushima as well, which is
what amazing soundtrack. I love it, because I think I got it last year, and I'm a massive soundtrack fan from games and films, games especially, and films. And so listening to Ghost of Tsushima, the old school like Bastion, Ori, Journey, Mega Solid, Assassin's Creed, like all these, and Doom, obviously, like I thought a completely different soundtrack, but I've got like a huge soundtrack collection, especially from games, and I just love. I used to be a massive gamer when I was younger. I kind of get back into younger, and it's just I've always been fascinated about the sounds and music behind it, thinking that really brings so much emotion to the game, doesn't it? I mean, how it builds up and then makes you feel like you're actually immersed even more into the game. Because I've always loved that kind of movie-esque kind of thing. Like that's why one of my favorite games was Metal Gear Solid when I was younger.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I've always called them kind of interactive movies where you're actually playing a film.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack behind it, thinking, wow, this is making me feel so emotional now and excited. And I've always been really fascinated about that kind of aspect of things.
It was in a similar vein. I always loved it. Was it Eamon Tobin that did the music for Splinter Cell?
Brilliant, yeah.
I mean, it was that and Journey,
the
score for Austin's score for Journey, that got me into. Oh wow! I think I quite like to write music for games, and then I kind of, I'm coming to it relatively. I'm a relatively new arrival on the game composition scene. I've only done a few, but I just it's. I mean, never. I love what I love. People ask me like, you wear all these different hats. Where do you feel most at home? And I love every aspect of what I do. I love writing concert music. Like it's just amazing. That's your thing. No one tells you what to do. And I love working with, the electroacoustic world. That's amazing for me, because you've got, you're overwhelming choice, but you've got all of this control, and you only really need to persuade one player to come on side. I do a lot of work with a wonderful flautist called Carla Reese, who's a massive champion of new music. She's got her own label and really pushes new music in the UK. She's great. And a wonderful player and a great human being. And she really helps me kind of, she nudges me every so often. Oh, write something. And that's great, because that's what I need. Because I am good. In fact, I'm actually, now I'm in a university that is going to give me a little bit more scope to go back to doing slightly more experimental things. And what I'm really hoping to do is bring a little bit of that experimental mindset into my media work. I got a great opportunities to do that with the Hanked, because they wanted such an interesting score. And then, as I say, no temp, and they just said, off you go. And they were kind of really loving everything I was doing, which is just amazing when you kind of feel like you've got the trust of your directors, and you just fly in and you think, right, this is brilliant. But you don't always get that. And then, on the other hand, I'm absolutely adoring sitting there in my you know, in my pajamas or at the end of the day with a glass of wine, writing beautiful melodies for this absolutely exquisite hand-drawn computer game. I don't make me choose. Is that I love every aspect of what I do. I'm an educator as well. I'm a teacher. It's a huge thing for me. I love sharing all of this various that I've accumulated. I know some stuff, you know. I like to think I know some stuff. I've acquired at least some stuff over the years, and it's nice to be able to share it with people who want to make it. So yeah, I kind of it's nice to have a good life balance in that sense. I've forgotten your original question. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. It's about the loop thing, but it's amazing because do you feel like people are only now coming around to the idea of game music? Because I feel like people haven't always appreciated what goes on behind games. Like people think, oh, it's just stupid things to do, or the music's not that good. But when you actually show them how much goes into it, like, listen to this, it's amazing. Thinking, wow, is that from a game? Do you think that's people have only come around to the idea of what games are all about now?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, Jessica Curry has this show, doesn't she? And it's just great. And what's the listenership? And then, you know, you're seeing these sold out concerts of VGM. You know, people love it, and it's of an extremely high quality. I think it's beginning. No, it is there with now. It's a different entity to film music. It has different technical and aesthetic demands, but so what? We artists have always worked within limitations like this. You know, I don't care whatever it is, there's a limit. There's some kind of external limitation to your art in, you know, I mean, okay, there are some people who I'm thinking about Stockhausen and his helicopters, but you know, the rest of us, the mortals, those of us who have to who can't do that, we've always been slightly constrained by external forces, whether that be, you know, working collaboratively, or, you know, I've only got 3 players because I was only able to get funding for a small ensemble, or, you know, whatever. So I think people are really realizing the caliber of musicians. Now I spend a lot of time in the game music community on Twitter, and some of the you just every day there's high quality music being disseminated, and you just think, gosh, this is amazing. We're living in a golden age for it, I think. And then, you know, as I say, there are scores like Ori and Ghost of Tsushima, and you know, like that's just this what I'm aware of. What's on my radar at the minute is literally what I could have picked anything on my playlist. But it's just so good, and I don't want. Oh, it's a video game. I mean, I play my old man some stuff from and he's like, is that from a game?
Yeah,
because you know, I know that's a generational thing. Because they associate game, you know, with a much more with 8-bit. And mind you, by that, having said that, what a lot of those composers got out of, you know, we were talking about how to get the maximum amount of milk with the minimum amount of moo. Those composers got unbelievable results from the like 2.2 megabytes of whatever they were allowed in the overall package. They did outstanding things.
Of course they did. To think going from like Mario and Tetris days and Pong, those sort of soundtracks, to what they have now is just amazing, isn't it? To think that people are actually remembering those tunes from now, all those years later, it's just amazing. Like like Tetris. It's amazing, isn't it? But it's true what you said about that kind of generational thing, where I showed my parents and other family members different soundtracks from different games, thinking, wow, is that from a game?
Yeah.
Well, I was like, yeah, there we go. And I've talked about Jessica Curry as well, actually. Went to her show a few years back at the Royal Albert Hall, actually. That's 2 years ago. Sold out. And I know that this is when God of War just came out, the latest one. And that talk about soundtracks by Ben McCreary, amazing soundtrack. We must have heard it. But that was actually when it just came out, the game. And it was the last PC played for the intro with that kind of massive choir sound to have. Oh, he's so good.
He's a heck of a composer, eh?
Mm-hmm.
I retweeted something of his. He sort of said he actually finds, we were talking about melodic crafting.
Yeah.
He says he actually finds melodic generation really, really difficult.
Really?
Which was gratifying to hear. Yeah. I think I'm loving this culture of everyone being slightly more open about some of the struggles that we face, artistically. It's like, actually, you know what? This is really hard. Like me, it's like, oh God, I've got to do a mock-up. Oh God, I don't think I'm as fluent with melodic generation as you are. I don't think you sound like you can really riff off a load of melodies super fast. I'm not sure. I kind of tend to settle on a melody and then I get a bit stuck with it, and then maybe my future versions will be iterations of that. I'm a big believer in an iterative approach, like building up, starting simple and then thinking, how do I improve this melody? I don't like to think of the melodies that come to me as sort of pure distilled. This is the way it's got to be. I'm always chipping away at it. I'm always thinking, I could tweak that and make that longer and do this, and what if I change the second half of the melody? Those sorts of things I really do. And then I just keep my previous versions, and then like the next day, that one was rubbish. Number 3 was rubbish. Like, what were you thinking? Like, what were you thinking? Were you drunk? What was going on?
But you mentioned sorry, hey people.
Not at all. No, it's nightmare.
It's nightmare. I know you mentioned about singing to your phone as well. I mean, is it one of those moments for you where it always happens at night when you get into bed, thinking, I may just come to bed now, get my phone out, sing? Because for me, it's always at night before I go to bed, thinking,
so is it an inconvenient point? No, I'm a bit of an early riser. I get up super early, so by the time sort of nighttime comes along, I'm kind of like, I'm done. I could have the best idea in the world, but like, oh well, you missed it. You missed your window, brain. Sorry, it's sleep time now. You'll have to get up early with me tomorrow, and then remind me of it tomorrow. And does it? No, never does. It's very, very uncooperative brain.
Oh, but do you have any? I know you've got to go quite soon, so I won't keep you for too much longer.
No, that's fine.
But do you have any, you like you mentioned earlier, you wear so many different hats, like you do films, games, theatres. From each kind of field, do you have, say, any personal favourites, tracks that you've made for each kind of field?
Yeah, I always go back to when people ask me what should I listen to first of yours in the concert arena sphere. I always point them to In Cloud Light, because I was just really pleased with it. It just felt like the distillation of a lot of different strands of my thing that I was working on. And in the sort of game and media and film world, I'd say I'm recency biased, but I'm really loving the work that I'm doing on Dewborn Dawn right now. It feels like it's just such a joy. I'm kind of overwhelmed with being able to craft melody and all. So if you are interested, I'm kind of and this to the listeners, I post a lot of updates. I have a show reel. I'm updating the music as I go along. So if you want to follow my progress on that, I post quite a lot of updates, and you can listen there and check all that out. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the Dewborn Dawn soundtrack is my favorite in the media arena, and then probably In Cloud Light in the concert arena.
Oh, amazing. And actually, I was really keen to find out actually as well, just before we go, actually, that part of your studies, you did a doctoral study in composition at Royal Holloway, and you mentioned that you had to do a 90 minutes worth of music for that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, what did the course actually entail in the first place? I'm really keen to find out more about that.
Have you done a master's?
I haven't now. I went to university, so.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. But it's kind of, what's it like? It was amazing. Yeah, 90 minutes is a lot of music, especially if you're like me and you write too many notes. There were a lot of notes in there, and then there's and what I really found beneficial was critical reflection, which is a posh way of saying, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What motivates me? What's going on in my music? Like, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to achieve? How am I doing it? Where do I situate myself in terms of what else is going on around me? A really, really useful intellectual and developmental exercise. And I was writing a lot of instrumental music, quite hardcore classical stuff. I was lucky enough to work with all of the major London orchestras when I was doing it. I was working with the LSO and the LPO, and just out of this world good musicians. And you really learn so much about orchestration and what's going to work and what's possible, and you know, and that sort of aspect of things on a practical level as well. And then there's the whole, I'm reflecting all the time, and I'm reading, and I'm looking at other people who are doing this sort of thing. How are they doing it? Approaches. You kind of, you know, a lot of it's online, people sharing their ideas these days, less, you know, less. And I wasn't at Holloway a lot. I was more of a distance learner, so to speak. But that you are still part of a community. And I had a terrific supervisor who was super helpful in helping me find out where I was aiming for and where I needed to be going and all that sort of stuff. So I got really lucky in that respect. It was brilliant. It was it feels good to have got a PhD. I don't think I ever started my it was never nailed on that I was even going to go to university. I wasn't sure, you know, you don't, and then to sort of be here at this point, with a PhD, it's kind of cool. I got a PhD. That's nice.
That's amazing.
I forget because other than you know, having got the teaching job, I don't use it. That's not true to say I don't use it, because I use every element of it in some way. But I don't know. I don't think of myself as a doctor. I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I've got a strange. I guess I've got a strange relationship to it. It was an amazing experience, but I should think about that some more.
Yes, I getting a PhD is incredible. I mean, did you get a lot of advice from people before you did the course and during your course as well?
Yeah, and I looked at a lot of places, and I you know, I thought long and hard about where I wanted to go. And at the end of the day, it was the supervisor that I went with. I trusted him. I liked him. He was very supportive. So that I think you've got to find the right. It's like everything else. In a way, the institution can be secondary if you find the right people to work with and you're given the right opportunities. And obviously, as is everything in this game, you've got to make your own opportunities. Nobody's going to come and give you, you know, anything really. You got to carve out your own niche and your own opportunities.
Definitely, and for sure. And now you're a teacher yourself, and I hope you can inspire the next generation now. And how are you finding being a teacher again?
Well, I've always been a teacher. I've always been a teacher ever since I started. I've always done it alongside my whether I was working as an MD in the theatre, or I was teaching, you know, drama students, and then I was teaching music students, and then I was, you know, I've taught all my life. I think if you took it away from me, I'd really miss it. I mean, ask me again when I'm sort of overloaded with marking, you know, on a Wednesday in October, and I've got deadlines coming out my ears. It can be really stressful balancing, spinning all of the plates. But I really like being able to share, having done the thing. This is the thing. I'm doing the thing. You know, this is the thing. This is how I do it. And it's great because in music, we very rarely get too many people who aren't interested. They're there because, you know, they're interested in the thing. So there's a positive feedback loop of enthusiasm. Not all the time. I don't want to overstate it. I mean, we all feel like we can't be bothered, as I say, on a rainy Tuesday in October when there's no light outside. Nobody wants to be there. We all want to be in bed. But generally speaking, people who are doing this sort of stuff are doing it because they're enthusiastic about music and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it can be a real joy at its best.
Amazing. And talk about being overwhelmed. How we kind of mentioned earlier today, but how do you deal with being overwhelmed with so much work at the same time? Do you have that kind of way to help you?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of learning from business and productivity experts. I listen to it. I've discovered it's new for me. So it's a podcast called the Productivity Cast, and it's tools to help you stay on top of workflow. What do you do when you get an email comes in? You can't do anything about it right now. Well, you bang it out to Trello, and then it's in a filing cabinet that knows you've got to address it later, because otherwise it goes into your inbox and kind of in your brain. And then there's a YouTube channel that I follow. I've forgotten his name. Ari something. I don't know. He's doing his doctoral. I think he's doing doctoral studies at Cambridge. He's an actual medical doctor. He's he's also a bit of a productivity ninja. He uses something called Notion. So I use Notion which is like a note-taking tool. So kind of, it's this idea of a second brain. Your brain isn't designed to hold and retain information. It's designed to think of stuff. So get it out of your brain, get it into a computer. Now, listen, this does not work for everyone. This approach, and some people find this approach and having to digitize everything super stressful, and actually just an extra layer of complexity that they don't need in their lives. So it's not for everyone. But for me, between Trello and Todoist, and I have like 101 little tools like Text Expander. I type in a little two-letter phrase, and it pings. It means I can fill in internet forms with my address on faster. So I try and find ways to be efficient. I get up early in the morning, try and get ahead of the day, and I have a fitness regime and all of that sort of, try and lead a balanced life and try and stay on top of the stress. I try and take a day a week off. Did I say that sentence correct? Yeah, try and take a day off a week. Which I think is really important, especially if you're a freelancer, because the culture of overwork is endemic, and there are loads of cultural problems in the game industry anyway. But one of them is definitely overwork. And that goes for freelance work generally in the arts and the entertainment and media industries. It's you need to. No one else is going to look after you. You need to look after your own health and mental well-being. And for me, staying on top of the relentless churn of stuff that I've got to keep on top of is essential. So that's how I manage my, and I do things like, I'm down here now. I'm not far away from the New Forest, so I take regular walks and nature. I think that green space and just being away, because all of these screens and this digital technology, it's great, and it allows us to do everything, but just turn it off. Turn it off if you can. If you can, turn it off for a day a week. Go and be with your friends. Be present in nature or with people or whatever. That's my, and try and keep a sense of balance with it.
Definitely. And I just hope you're okay at the moment. And
same. It's been tough times for us all, right? It's
sure.
It's been really hard. And I've gone through a lot of life changes, relocating, and I had COVID actually. It was
wow. Did you?
Yeah, I had it. Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. It got pretty nasty at one point, so I highly recommend not getting it.
Of course.
I've got my jab number 2 tomorrow, so yeah. I don't know about you. Are you on the vaccination train? Have you been done yet?
No, with me, it's pretty controversial, but I'm not ready for the vaccine yet myself personally. But
okay,
maybe later on down the line I will.
Fine. Are you're going to wait and see whether I turn into a mushroom or something?
I'm already a mushroom, but it's just for me. I know it's controversial, but I'm not ready for it just yet, personally anyway. But I'm going to wait a little while. If it's all okay, then I'll take it myself. But that's just me anyway at the moment. Luckily,
being super cautious with it. Okay.
Yeah, that's me personally. But I'll see what happens down the line, really, and take it soon. But I'm going to end the podcast right there. Enough of the screen talk now. But
great to talk to you. And
I want to say thank you so much today. It was really lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
Likewise, my pleasure.
Thank you. And how can people find you online as well, just to make sure?
michaelcryne.com. And I'm all over Twitter moaning about whatever tech irritation has gone to me that day as well.
Love it. Oh, but thank you so much again for today, Michael. It's really a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me. Take care.
My pleasure. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.